all in together. Um, I'm going to be going over what insulin resistance is, how you can tell if it's you, how it's relating to you. So PCOS, erectile dysfunction, precocious puberty, menopause. So it's going to be a long one. Just hang out with me if you're interested in any of those things, how they're affecting you or someone in your family. Let's chat. Ask questions. If I can answer, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't. And look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a woman who got sick and suffered with most everything that I've been talking about. Not a man, so don't know about erectile dysfunction outside of the results of the men that I've worked with. So let's dive in. Insulin, first off, is a hormone. So that's one of the reasons it links so highly into our sex or reproductive hormones. It's a hormone. It actually takes precedence in your body over all other hormones. So even over estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, it has control more than they do. It has control more than leptin or ghrelin, your hunger and satiety hormones. It has more control marginally than cortisol. So when we have too much insulin in the system, it's really running the show. We need insulin. We need insulin. Guys, I have paint on my fingers. I've been doing crazy painting. So anyway, hormones are all regulated together, but when insulin is out of balance, it can start to cause a number of things in the body that create imbalance in all the other hormones. We're dealing with reproductive hormones this week, so I want to talk about that. We'll start at the top with pregnancy and women. I will get to erectile dysfunction and PCOS. Let's go. So insulin resistance, really, if I can break it down simply, and if it still doesn't make sense, please ask. I had a wonderful gentleman. Sorry, I got this blanket. My feet get cold. A wonderful gentleman who was asking questions this morning, and I'm all about answering the questions where I can. Okay, so insulin is an energy transport hormone, but it's also a fat storing hormone. So when we talk about energy transport, the energy transport ties into the fat storing because fat storage is actually energy storage in the body. Let me send a message to her. So I want to make sure there's nothing wrong with my family. Hang on. So when we're eating food currently, like that we have available to us right now, it's turning into energy or glucose in our system too quickly. And our blood can only handle so much glucose in it. About a teaspoon of that in our bloodstream is all that should be there, or the body starts to go into panic mode because it's too much. We're all eating more than a teaspoon of sugar a day. We're all eating way more than that. So our blood gets overloaded with sugar. Insulin comes out to grab the sugar, glucose, energy, and deliver it to every cell in the body. So there was some confusion this morning, and please slow me down if you're not understanding what I'm saying, because it's important that you do understand. So every cell, whether it's your joints, your bones, your lungs, your liver, your heart, your kidneys, your hair, your eyes, your brain, your teeth, your tongue, all of that, your nails, the skin, your blood vessels, your lymph, all of that is cells that needs energy to function, right? It takes energy, just like the light bulb doesn't work until there's energy that goes to it. That's how our cells are. They need energy to function. Insulin transports the energy. In a normal body, in a normal system, that's all happening pretty smoothly, right? But in today's food environment and with what's happening with us, and us all being told by well-meaning people to eat every 2 hours and to eat constantly, we're making that whole system be overloaded and go awry. Now there's too much of the energy transporter in the system all the time. There's too much energy in the system all the time. Our body is meant to function on insulin and then turn off of insulin. So if you think about a car and you put a tank of fuel in the car and you put your foot to the floor of that car, how long could the car run with your foot to the floor of the gas pedal before the car would eventually run out of gas? The engine would get overheated. things would start to go wrong. So that's what's happening with us. It's not like we have our foot on and off the gas. We have our foot on the gas all the time, and it's causing destruction in our body. That's insulin. Insulin resistance comes from having too much insulin in the body, from having too much fuel constantly in the body, fuel that turns into energy too quickly in the body. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of a really overall view of it. So I'm going to start to talk about how insulin relates to your other hormones and what's happening. But before I get there, I want you to know a couple of cues. If you're wondering, is this you? Is this affecting you? Why am I talking about this? Look, if you have a belly that's poking out, whether you're heavy or not, your belly's poking out, that's a cue that you have insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, it cues your brain, hypothalamus starts storing fat in underneath the muscle wall, and that's called visceral fat, and that's what's making the belly poke out. So that's a cue. If your blood pressure is 130/80 or higher, that's a cue that you're insulin resistant. 95% of hypertension is linked to insulin resistance. So then there's things like if you're swelling and having edema, that's a cue. If you're having skin tags and skin discoloration, those are cues that you might be insulin resistant. If your triglycerides are high, being over 150, and your HDL is low, I think it's 50, under 50 for men and under 40 for women, those are cues. We're not paying attention to LDL, just triglycerides and HDL, okay? High triglycerides, low HDL, those combined, that's a cue that you're having insulin resistance problems, okay? If you want to go have a test by a doctor to like say, this is me, great. But it doesn't take medications to turn around, you guys. It takes understanding our food environment. I'll go over that later. So everybody clear on what insulin resistance is and looks like? There's some other symptoms, you guys. Things like having constant headaches can be a symptom. Losing hair, gaining weight, because insulin is transporting that energy and storing it as fat when the other cells won't take it up. Those are all symptoms. And it doesn't mean you have to have all of those symptoms. Some of them, just any one, could mean you have insulin resistance. Some of them, just a combination of one or two. The more of them that you have, the more I would sit up and pay attention to that it might be you. Okay. So let's talk about, I said I was going to send her this message because she doesn't know what's going on. Let me send this really quick, everybody. All right, so in pregnancy, women's bodies are pretty amazing, women's and men's bodies. We're going to deal with women first, and then I'll get to erectile dysfunction and sperm production and all of that for men, because insulin resistance really does affect that, and controlling your insulin resistance can make it better, much better, and it has happened for numbers of men. But when a woman does become pregnant, we'll go back to the whole ovarian, the ovulation cycle in a little bit. But when a woman becomes pregnant, she becomes marginally insulin resistant as a factor of the pregnancy. During pregnancy, it's actually normal and healthy for a woman to be a little bit insulin resistant. What's happening is the cells are saying, okay, enough of the energy for us. Mama has to make a baby. Mama has to store fat to have an excess energy for baby. Mama has to create this placenta, and mama has to grow excess breast milk production for her breasts. Mama has a lot of things. Mama has to have energy. So we want to store as much as we can. So women end up with cravings. They're a little bit insulin resistant in the body because that energy is being diverted to other causes during pregnancy. It's normal function of pregnancy. In fact, as the fat cells start to grow with insulin resistance, and we all see women start to put on weight when they're pregnant, those fat cells that are growing during pregnancy actually have more insulin receptors in them. They're more sensitive to the insulin so that they can take on more of that energy during pregnancy. Once the baby is born, that process reverts. Those insulin receptors start to go away, and you go back to a normal number of insulin receptors in your fat cells. So there's a reason why women are gaining weight during pregnancy, and it has everything to do with insulin. So insulin is majorly important, and it's important to understand the role. So yes, women, you'll be somewhat insulin resistant during pregnancy. That's a normal factor, right? Diverting energy. So mom has energy, mom can grow a baby. Right now, when mom is having a baby, we're not worried about so much about all the other tissues as much in the body as we normally are. So when there's problems is when we become highly insulin resistant, when we're creating so much insulin that the bloodstream can no longer handle it, the fat cells aren't storing it, and then we end up with gestational diabetes. Way too much sugar in the bloodstream during those early stages of pregnancy. The higher the insulin resistance in early pregnancy, the more likely you are to develop preeclampsia, a very devastating disorder later in pregnancy. Preeclampsia puts your liver and your kidneys at risk, as well as the baby, because the baby's not getting as much nutrition then. So understand that it's all important as you're growing a child. If you're consciously having children and wanting to have the healthiest baby you can, understand you will be somewhat insulin resistant. Now is not the time to say I can have whatever sugar, whatever I want. It's all good because I'm pregnant. No, that excess sugar during pregnancy, the refined sugars and stuff, are going to put you and your baby at risk. So pay attention, okay? Um, we're talking about pregnancy. Preeclampsia happens when? All right. So your placenta needs that energy because you've got to grow that. So that's where the insulin resistance is coming, diverting energy to the placenta. The placenta needs a lot of blood flow because it's basically an blood impacted tissue that's growing the baby. So when you become overly insulin resistant, remember one of the things I said was a high blood pressure of 130/80. The higher your blood pressure is, the less blood flow is going to the placenta. Okay, so if you're having increased hypertension or high blood pressure during pregnancy, you're not getting the nutrients and the blood flow to the placenta. Now the placenta starts saying, okay, well, I'm going to create this thing called vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF. What that protein does is it spurns growth of blood vessels because the placenta is not getting enough. So it's like, okay, well, we'll grow more. Okay. So you're trying to grow more blood flow so that your baby and your placenta can have what they need. But in some instances, in some people, especially in women who have this higher insulin, start having this where when it leads to preeclampsia is another component is produced. And in the reading that I've done, and maybe some doctors that come in will have a better explanation, but from what I understand is, so there's this other protein factor called, it's a sticky VEGF receptor. And what that does is it binds to that vascular endothelial growth factor and prevents it from working. So now your placenta is trying to do this job, but it can't. It's getting less blood flow. Your baby's getting less blood flow because the sticky factor is stopping the factors that the placenta is growing. Now, when that happens, it also causes problems with the kidneys. So now the kidneys are supposed to be a filtration system. I hope everybody understands that. If you don't, great, you do now, right? Your kidneys are a filtration system in your body. So it's filtering out salts, it's filtering out proteins, it's filtering out a lot of things. Well, when you're pregnant and having preeclampsia, it starts spilling proteins from the blood into the urine. So when women are in their later trimesters, part of the reason they're doing urinalysis and looking for that protein is because that spillage of protein into the urine can be a warning that they're having this preeclampsia going on, which puts mom and baby at risk. Lots of information, right? So please ask if I'm going over it too quickly. All of this stems from excess insulin in your body. So when we think about, well, it's not affecting me here or there, insulin affects almost everything that we have going on in our body, and it definitely affects our reproductive system and the growth of our babies. It can affect how much nutrition the baby is getting in the uterus, in utero, and what body weight the baby comes out at. Um, interesting thing, if a woman is too lean or going through starvation, then and she just doesn't have enough fat and doesn't have enough insulin, then it's going to cue the body that this woman is not ready to carry a child. So there's a reason, like when bodybuilders are leaning out and they have very little body fat and all of this, that their menses stops and they're not fertile, because the body is saying, hey, this isn't a good ground for us to grow a baby in. And so insulin kind of cues that to say, okay, this is a healthy mom. We can grow a baby in this condition. But it takes a balanced insulin. Okay. Now, as we go through pregnancy, we've already dealt with preeclampsia, very dangerous, right? A lot of when you if you hit preeclampsia and they can't get it under control, what the doctor wants to do is remove the baby as quickly as it can, because it's putting the baby and the mom at risk. All right. So as soon as the baby can survive, they will take a look at taking the baby out of the mom, cesarean section. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Khalud. So post-pregnancy, we are nursing our babies, right? And I think I haven't read studies on it. Again, I connect the dots. So when I read this piece and this piece, and then I start going, oh, wow, it makes sense that this would happen. So when we're nursing, part of what's happening is when we're nursing, not only are we feeding the baby, but it's cueing our body to start shutting down that excess insulin. So it's taking a mom who was insulin resistant during pregnancy so that she could grow a baby and have energy to be like, okay, baby's out. We're going to slow that insulin level down. We're going to become more insulin sensitive. And how that cues is through breastfeeding. So if a mom doesn't have enough milk to feed the baby, she's not getting those cues for her body to become more insulin sensitive again. Not to mention all the things that are not happening for baby when it's not getting the breast milk. So when we switched from this, it's not cool to breastfeed your baby, and we started putting them on the bottle, maybe, do some independent thinking, go look on your own. I'm going to try and look into it later, but it makes sense to me why we started having more women with weight problems and diabetes post-pregnancy. If we're not getting the cues to become insulin sensitive again through breastfeeding, then you're staying in that insulin resistant state longer, and possibly for much longer. So that's all important, right? Now, I accuse a lady that I knew in my early 30s, one of these really skinny, beautiful women, got pregnant, got really big during her pregnancy. And all the older ladies were like, she's never going to go back to that size. She's never going to be a normal size again. 6 weeks later, she came into work, same size as she was before pregnancy. Although she gained weight in that insulin resistant state of creating energy for her baby, because again, insulin's going to store fat. She was breastfeeding after and back to normal activity and became insulin sensitive again. Her body weight returned. Couple of factors before I move on to PCOS and some other things. A woman who has gestational diabetes or way too much insulin during pregnancy is 7 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes later in life. And once a woman has had babies, this whole process of becoming a little bit insulin resistant during pregnancy makes you be more receptive to being a little bit insulin resistant later in life. So it's really important to pay attention to what we're eating, what we're doing after having a baby. Another thing is when you're this doesn't have as much to do with insulin, but I want to say it because it's important to me. I think, and yes, I'm a proponent of breastfeeding, obviously. But there's another thing that happens when you're breastfeeding. There are brain chemicals that happen. And so when you're breastfeeding, you're bonding with that baby and you're loving that baby a little bit more. It's chemical reactions going on in your brain. Now when baby is acting up or having colic or having whatever, and it's screaming and you're frustrated, that's going to kick in and help you take care of this little infant that is really reliant on you. And I believe, again, I haven't read studies on this, but connecting the dots for me, it would make sense when a woman is extremely insulin resistant, unable to produce milk, not breastfeeding, when she's not getting those hormone cues from the brain, uh, probably is more likely to have some postpartum depression. Okay, so I think breastfeeding is really important. And in order to have healthy breast tissue and breast milk, you've got to maintain your insulin levels during pregnancy. That was a lot. I hope it all makes sense. So let's move on to PCOS, unless somebody has questions. So PCOS, guys, it's really Dr. Bickman, the metabolic scientist that I love to refer to, says that PCOS and erectile dysfunction, but primarily PCOS, should really be called metabolic infertility. It really starts with the insulin. And I'm going to explain some things why right now, and hopefully this will make sense to you guys. So when a woman has her ovulatory cycle, early on in the cycle, estrogen levels are low. When those estrogen levels are low, it's cueing the brain to put out this FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. That follicle stimulating hormone comes out, and it's what's stimulating follicles in the ovaries to start growing into the eggs that are going to be preparing to be fertilized to create a baby. And, you know, it's just like the one sperm that gets through. We have one egg that grows strong enough to be released in from the ovary and be presented for this fertilization, right? So as the eggs grow, it's requiring more estrogen. Okay, there's a reason for that. Now, we start off with androgens, things like testosterone, and those get converted into estrogen. So I always think male, female. Men have more testosterone, women have more estrogen. But the thing is we have to have testosterone to be converted into estrogen. This is what's happening with PCOS. In the presence of insulin, that testosterone conversion is being dampened. And why is that important? So early on in pregnancy, estrogen is low, right? Stimulating the follicles to grow into eggs. Now, as the eggs grow, those eggs, those follicles are triggering the brain through estrogen, increased estrogen, to produce another signal called luteinizing hormone. The luteinizing hormone comes out now that the eggs are more mature, and it says, okay, this one egg is strong enough, it gets released from the ovaries. The other eggs, sorry, too bad, so sad, we don't need you anymore. And it starts to degrade those other eggs, and they kind of, if you will, disintegrate and disappear from the ovaries. That's a normal cycle. Now, one egg has been released. It you know, all the other placental, you know, it attaches. We're waiting for fertilization. If not, it deposits out. That's a period when the egg deposits back out. So with insulin resistance, stopping this production of estrogen that's cueing the luteinizing hormone to come out and stop the growth of these eggs and discard those eggs, that never happens. Those eggs continue to grow to a point, and as they're growing and they're kind of hanging out in the ovary too long, they start to get embedded in the lining of the ovary. And so there's many of them, right? You're creating many eggs because your body's trying to give you the best chance to have a baby every month. And so those eggs kind of get embedded in that lining of the ovaries, and it creates cysts or inflammation or infection in the ovaries. So many, cystic, the cysts that are created from the eggs that were not luteinized and told to go away, and then it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So now it's painful. Your periods are irregular because remember, you're not having an egg that gets ejected at the right time. You're having a harder time conceiving because the egg may or may not be as viable as it should be when it does get ejected. So now we have irregular periods. Sometimes they're very short. Sometimes, thank you, Dr. Khalud. And sometimes your periods can be a long time in between. But when you do have it now, it's very painful for all of these reasons. The cysts and your body's just been preparing and this all happens. So the other thing is, now remember I said you're not getting estrogen production because it's your body's unable to convert testosterone into estrogen. That's coming as clues from the brain are not happening as you're insulin resistant. The insulin resistance starts, okay? So it's preventing this testosterone from converting to estrogen, messes with your cycle. But now women have too much estrogen, or I'm sorry, testosterone. And so now they're getting facial hair, they're getting male pattern baldness, they're more moody, maybe more aggressive, but they're also putting on a lot of weight. One common problem with PCOS is this sudden weight gain that they just can't seem to lose. So I would tell you, if you get control of your insulin, a lot of these processes can go back to normal. And I've seen so many women who were told they would probably never have kids and their periods were never going to be normal. And I was a PCOS woman. I'm postmenopausal by the time I found the protocol that I use, but I've seen so many women who've gotten a normal period within 3 months on the system, some within a month to 2 months, and then many of those women are actually being able to conceive children who are actively trying within a few months of reversing their insulin resistance and becoming more insulin sensitive. So PCOS, metabolic infertility, very much linked to insulin resistance. Okay, now I'm sure I'm missing some things, but I'm trying to remember everything the best I can. Men, erectile dysfunction. Okay, so we've already talked about how testosterone gets converted into estrogen. That happens in the ovaries, right? We just talked about that. Men don't have ovaries. So the testicles do a lot of this process for the men, although there's aromatase that is converting and that's produced in the ovaries. It's produced very little amount in the testes. So much more testosterone is held onto for men and much less is converted into estrogen. So in a normal man with normal testosterone levels, everything's rolling along fine. Grow beards, grow muscles, you know, all of the manly stuff that we love and adore, or should love and adore, okay? But there's been some debate and some confusion. They say when you have low testosterone, you're putting on weight, and that's the problem. But I'm going to invite you to understand that it's most likely not that way. So what if I show you how, in the presence of insulin resistance, it's causing the low testosterone? So when you have insulin resistance, remember insulin is going to start to store fat when the rest of the cells are resistant to it. So as the body is storing fat in men, and it happens in women too, but we want to deal with men, there is some aromatase being produced in those fat cells as they grow. So remember, aromatase is converting testosterone into estrogen. So now men that would have normal testosterone levels, when they have excess fat, are having more conversion of testosterone into estrogen. Now we have a situation where beard growth is patchy and unnormal, where they're losing body hair, where they're having man boobs and love handles, and their testosterone level is going down. Okay, so good morning from to New Zealand. So you guys, it's not just the women that need to pay attention to their insulin levels. This could be drastically affecting you as men. So I want you to think about the fact that the higher the testosterone, or the higher the insulin level in your body, the lower your testosterone level is going to be. And that impacts you in a number of ways. So as that is happening, also with the insulin levels going high. I'm trying to think way too far ahead. So as those insulin levels are going high, we've already talked about how it can cause vascular problems or hypertension, right? So with that restricted blood flow, okay, you can imagine what happens to your erectile function. So when you don't have enough blood flow, you're not having the same ability to obtain and maintain an erection. And it's not just about the blood flow as we would think about it, I'm thinking, but it's because with insulin resistance, it dampens down the production of nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is a chemical in the body that helps your blood vessels dilate so that more blood flow can go through them. With insulin resistance, that's dampened, and so oftentimes nitric oxide is very ineffective and not able to allow your blood vessels to dilate. And I know you guys can all connect the dots with why that's happening. But one more thing that's happening to men with reproductive health and fertility. In the presence of insulin resistance, for your sperm and the motility of your sperm, there has to be testosterone. There has to be a number of other hormones at play. Some of them come from the brain. And when you're insulin resistant, the brain is not giving the correct cues. So now you have low testosterone. Okay, so you're having more troubles producing effective sperm, and you have problems getting and maintaining an erection. And so, yeah, now you just have less sperm. Hello. Yes, I'm a granny, and I'm pretty proud of that. So that is all happening for men. And wouldn't it be wonderful if you knew that it may not take hormone replacement therapy or, you know, a number of these other things, that if you just got your insulin under control, that these things could get better for you. I'm not going to promise that they will. I've seen it happen for a number of men. I'm just posing the question for you guys to understand that there is a different way around all of this. So I said that I was going to talk about kids and menopause a little bit too. I think the biggest part is in this part where we're talking about PCOS, erectile dysfunction, and pregnancy. But when we look at kids, so kids who are born of insulin-resistant mothers are more likely to develop prediabetes and diabetes earlier in life. Okay, that I can't remember the percentage, but the percentage is pretty drastic of how quickly and more likely that those kids are to develop these disorders later in life. And it's not just about the mom. If the dad is insulin resistant and his sperm is carrying that, now he's contributing to that as well. And there have been some studies starting to show that a dad who's insulin resistant is more likely to produce a child who's more insulin resistant. So both mom and dad need to be healthy in order to give that baby the best chance at growth. So most kids with this insulin resistant thing, I want you to understand, some kids are going to be born underweight, especially with things like preeclampsia, where the baby's not just getting enough energy. And I go back to in my 30s before I knew anything about all of this, and I worked with this giant of a young man, and he was a preemie baby. He was underweight as a baby, and he struggled with his weight the rest of his life, and he was a pretty big guy. So science is showing that babies who are born extremely underweight for their genetics and their ethnicity are more likely to become diabetic later in life. There's some stress factors, cortisol, kicks off insulin, and some other factors that are going on that I don't fully understand yet, so I'm not going to dive into. Just the science shows that these babies who are born out of preeclampsia, immature, underweight, have more likelihood of being diabetic or insulin resistant later in life. So it's really important for the health of your baby and you to take care of it before you get pregnant and maintain it while you're pregnant, okay? Now, the other thing that happens is when we have babies who are more likely to have insulin resistance early in life, it's messing with their natural growth or puberty. So in the 1800s, as human beings, we didn't hit puberty until about the age of 16. In the early 1900s, because of the Industrial Revolutions and the way we had food available and the changes already happening in our food, we started seeing that number drop to about the age of 13 or 14 in the early 1900s. So a couple of years got shaved off of when we're normally supposed to be hitting puberty in the early 1900s. Now, today, the last research was saying about the age of 10 that our kids are going through puberty. That's about 6 years off of their young life that they're hitting this puberty too soon. And now I heard another doctor saying that they're seeing kids as young as 6 and 7 go through puberty. So now they're having these growth spurts. So they may grow bigger than their cohorts initially, but their growth plates are going to close off too soon, and their bone growth is going to shut down too soon. So initially they may be bigger than the other kids, but they're going to start to have joint issues and they're not going to have that growth. So many of them may end up shorter than the rest of their cohort as they age later, because this happened way too quickly in them. They grew way too quickly. It shut down way too quickly. So there's that physiological part. Now for girls, it's forcing them to grow breasts too soon, and they're putting on the womanly curves too soon, fat that's telling the body this body is ready for pregnancy. And then it's creating this ovulation too soon in young girls. So the body really isn't ready for it, but insulin resistance is cueing the body to be ready. And now we have a child who has a body that they don't fully understand yet, emotions and desires they don't fully understand yet, and we wonder why our kids are confused. I would invite you to make that connection. Think about that for a little while and understand the damage that it's causing our kids and the undue stress that it's causing our kids. So we don't want our kids to go through puberty early. We don't want that. We want them to have the best chance at normal growth. Plus, when they go through puberty too early, they can develop things like ovarian cancer, more likely to develop that, more likely to develop breast cancer, more likely to develop testicular cancer. That's not a life we want for our kids. Also, kids, boys who are highly insulin resistant in youth, so say they are to the age where they should be doing these things, now they're having erectile dysfunction. So right as they're starting to grow, and they should be having cues from their body, and now they can't get and maintain an erection because of the amount of insulin resistance in their body. And for a young man, that's extremely damaging. Okay, so this is more than about your kids putting on extra weight. It's so much more than that. So we really want to pay attention to what we're doing to our kids and how they're growing, not just, oh, we conceived a baby and we have this cute little baby and we love this little baby. We want to think about what happens as they turn 10, 11, 12, 13, and what's going on with them and the emotional stress and anxiety and depression that can happen in them with insulin resistance. So now on the other end of the spectrum, I want to talk about menopause. I'm a menopausal woman. Had insulin resistance. We now look back, look at the cues in life. I went through puberty early. I had PCOS. I had all these things. So now we can estimate that I was probably insulin resistant for somewhere between 30 and 40 years before I ever got diagnosed as diabetic. So the longer you're insulin resistant, the harder it is to fully reverse it. In the meantime, I lost 3 joints. I lost my gallbladder. I was losing my eyesight. My eyesight's gotten better since I've become insulin sensitive. I was losing my hair, all of the things. I still have some excess weight on me. Now my estrogen levels are down because I'm in menopause. Now my gallbladder is removed, so I have thyroid problems and estrogen problems. You guys, there's a whole other issue of things that happen in menopause. So in menopause, men are starting to do it too, but I'm going to talk about women right now. We're already producing less hormone. And the longer we're on this planet and the longer we're eating those foods, the more we're building up this propensity to be insulin resistant. And so we're having more and more heavy women. Now, we should have some weight on us in age. A couple of things. When we have a little bit of weight on us in age, what's happening is it's causing pressure on the bones, allowing us to maintain better bone density. So being extremely thin as we age as women is not as healthy. I did some studies on that years ago, and even light weight bearing can add to a woman's bone density by a great margin. So in menopause, when you're already at risk for hormones, if you're having problems with insulin, which is dampening your production from testosterone into estrogen, now you're starting to have a lot of problems. Pain, anxiety, depression, excess weight, body temperature swings, all of it. So I actually just started some bioidentical hormone replacement because I know that I need the extra boost. But I'm always, always, always addressing my insulin resistance. If I forget anything in the day, it will be anything else. But I never forget my protocol to take care of my insulin now that I know all of the things that it affects in life. So I hope that helps you guys understand why insulin is so important with your reproductive system. I also, now, there's a couple of things you can do, right? I hear people say all the time it's the ultra processed food. I can't deny that. But most of us don't have the opportunity or this the ability to avoid all of that food. What we do need to understand is that our food is greatly changed from what it should be. And at the beginning of all this, I talked about how our food is converting into energy too quickly. So how does that happen? What happens is our food, whether it's been boxed or whether we're talking raw organic food, we have about 50%, about half of the fiber available in our food than we used to have 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So one of the keys to maintaining your health is, yes, you want to watch the sugar intake, but you want to make sure that you're getting in fiber before you eat every time you eat. So I've written because I want to help. Yes, I represent a company and I represent a protocol. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I wrote an ebook called 6 Simple Steps. And we're going to go over those steps right now, okay? So if you want to get a head start on taking care of your insulin resistance, these are things you can do. By the way, these things and the protocol has reversed my diabetes and my blood pressure, my hypertension is reversed. I don't have the joint pain I had before. I'm doing so much better than I was 2 years ago, and I'm now 59, getting ready to turn 60 in a few months. Like, I don't know. I used to dread turning 60, but now I am looking forward to it. Chris, I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So the 6 simple tips, let's go over those really quick, and then I can go over them in detail if anybody has questions. But I wrote an ebook. I'm about to show you guys where you can find that too. So get fiber in first before you eat, every time you eat. Thank you. Thank you. And then I want you to price protein. Most of us are not getting enough protein in our diets. In my ebook, I link to a list of proteins that I didn't create the list, but there's a good list of proteins, whether you're vegan, whether you're carnivore, to get protein in. Most of us are not getting in enough protein. So we need to prioritize on that. Protein, by the way, gives your muscles building blocks, and it doesn't spike your insulin as high as carbohydrates do. Then you want to eat healthy fats. So fill up with fats. Fats don't spike your insulin at all, but I'm not talking about seed oils and corn oils. Those can be really inflammatory and actually, through the process of inflammation, create more problems with insulin resistance. So the oils that I have are, in my house, I actually have extra virgin olive oil, real butter, no additives, straight cream butter, and coconut oil. And then I don't cut the fats off of my meats, and I can show you guys what I eat or tell you what I eat, but those are the fats I have. Now, avocado oil is really great too, but with extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil, make sure that it's in a dark bottle, or it's going to go rancid, or it's likely a seed oil with just enough of olive oil or avocado oil in there for them to market it that way. Remember, food marketing, any marketing, can get a little tricky. You got to pay attention. So fiber, protein, fats, and you should eat in that order as well. That will help keep your insulin down. Fibers first, then your proteins, and then your fats. If you eat your foods in that order, your insulin levels will stay lower. And then limit your carbs. So I'm not telling you you can't have carbs. I'm saying limit them. If you can, avoid the processed carbs. I still eat processed carbs, and my health is good. But do I do better? Like, my breakfast this morning was no nitrate sausages, a couple of eggs, and a pear. I ate the sausages and eggs first. I did have a couple of small rounds of cheese for some fats, and then I had the pear. And I'm full. Like, I ate that at like 11 this morning. I will eat when this live is over, and then I'll be done for the day. So fiber, protein, fats, limit your carbs. Then you want to do some time-based eating, intermittent fasting, and you want to move your body. I know that a lot of people who are very insulin resistant are in pain and feel like they just can't get up and move. I've been there. been there. Like I felt like I wanted to punch somebody rather than get up because it hurt so bad. But getting some movement in is going to make your cells and your muscles more insulin sensitive and help you with this whole thing. So walk as far as you can. If it's flailing your arms around, move your body however you can. The more you can move, the more you should move, but move your body. Those are the 6 simple tips. I go into them in detail in the ebook. Please download it. It's free. That's just to help you guys out. Now, the protocol that I use that's going to help you, so that somebody asked for a better solution to metformin. Metformin, Trulicity, Mounjaro, those things all have damaging effects to your body. I am not a proponent of medications unless absolutely necessary. I've thrown away all of my medications and I try to only supplement with these natural products. So go to my profile link right up top here. Just go to that, and then when you get to my profile, tap that. You'll have to tap again. It'll bring you to my profile, and right here in my profile is this link. And I didn't explain the system, so why don't I stop my role? First, I'll show you where to get it. Just go there. So if you want to look at that while I'm talking, great. It'll take you to my Linktree page, and that will have where the system that I use, natural food products that are listed in the PDR, okay? They have science and clinical studies behind them, so they are in the PDR. My website, which has a lot more information about the protocol I'm about to share with you, that free ebook you'll see right there, the Beating Insulin Resistance group that I have on Facebook, as well as a number of other things, and a way to contact me if you want to speak with me directly and see if this can help you. So what is the protocol? Let's take a look at that. The protocol that I keep talking about that I use, I stumbled on it, by the way, on social media here, just like you guys are finding me, okay? I'm an authorized distributor. What this is it's real food products. So it's not medications. It's not causing damage. If you're currently taking supplements and whatnot, you can take this right alongside of it. If you're taking metformin, you take this until your doctor titrates you off of any of those other drugs. You work with your doctor to come off of your medications, okay? This does not interfere with any of them, but it will help your blood sugars come down, your A1C come down, and your triglycerides come down. So they used to just have a 90-day money-back guarantee on the fact that it would do that. But now the company really wants to get this in as many people's hands as possible and affect people's health in a really big way. So they're offering a 90-day money-back guarantee always, just on satisfaction. So if you get your blood work done before you start and your blood work doesn't go down after 90 days on, you get your money back. If you do it and you work with me and you're consistent and you do the system and it just doesn't seem like it's working for you, you're not happy with it, you call the company, you get your money back. So the protocol looks like this. I drink a tea in the morning. By the way, I'm having a second tea this afternoon because I've had a really busy day. Heading to Turkey in a few months with my daughter, so we spent half the morning trying to make arrangements and make sure our tickets were all bought and all the insurance and stuff. Anyway, I'm having my second tea. This tea shuts down your hunger. It gives you mental clarity and energy. It was actually developed as a mental health tool. So it's actually has some short studies on it that are showing that people's wellness score, happiness, less anxiety, depression, was increased by 75% by using this consistently for 30 days. It's a tea, comes like this, mix it in some water, shake it up, drink it. I like mine iced, so it's here. You can have it hot or cold, but I drink this every morning. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is start mixing up my tea and drink that. I'm going to go over a couple of the things that it has in it that are causing this. It doesn't give you crashes, has a little bit of caffeine in it, but there's some things called adaptogens in it that are naturally occurring in this plant that allow that caffeine to be moderated so it doesn't hit you like Red Bull or coffee or all of that, but you get the energy. Now, when you're drinking this, especially in a fasted state, like I wake up in the morning, it's been 12 hours since I've eaten, I drink this, shuts down my hunger, so I'm not hungry. And then it's helping burn fat for fuel. It's helping push out ketones, which are helping that burning fat for fuel. And it's giving you that mental clarity and energy. That's step one. There's the components in here are chlorogenic acids, triterpenoid saponins, mate saponins, and Come on, I know the other one is just missing me right now, but the chlorogenic acids in this are one component. The reason I eat pears, high in fiber, low in sugar, high in chlorogenic acids. They have a neuroprotective gene expression in the brain. This tea has antioxidant, anti-cancer activities. That neuroprotective gene expression helps with mood, and those components are helping mediate the energy, so it's not that throw you against the wall and drop you to the floor energy, but it's a nice smooth energy. So there's that, and it's helping burn fat for fuel. Now, before I eat, the second part of my day is these two. So this is the same product, but I use it twice. So this I had before my first meal of the day. Before I make my next meal, I will have another one of these. Again, I put about this much water in my bottle. I pour this in, shake it up, and drink it 10 minutes before I eat. Fiber first. This is a scientifically designed blend of fibers. 3 fibers in here are specifically to help slow down the delivery of carbohydrates. So there's soluble fibers that can soak up water and insoluble fibers that don't in this packet. So the combination of those is key to what we're trying to achieve with insulin resistance. It's not one type of fiber, it's not 2 types of fiber, it's clinically proven. There's scientific studies on this and how this one packet can reduce a blood glucose spike by 27%. One packet before a meal can reduce that blood glucose spike by 27%. I forgot to say that too. This little gem, this can increase your strength and endurance during training and physical activity by 10 to 13%. So I have this 10 minutes before both of my meals, slows down the delivery of those carbs, but it's also, because of the soluble fibers in it, it's making this gel matrix in your gut that expands, especially when it hits your gut enzymes. Now it's coating your stomach. I had a really acidic stomach and a really damaged microbiome when I started. And so that really helped soothe my gut down. I don't have those acidic days unless I get a hold of seed oils. But it's filling you up. So you're less likely to overeat. You're a little bit full before you eat. One lady wrote me and said, "Hey, can I have the balance after I eat? Because I'm just not hungry when it's time to eat if I drink the balance before." That's kind of the point. We want to stop the overeating. And we want to get the right foods in and get them delivering to your system consistently. It's almost like a time release capsule. So now that it's in your system and you're not eating near as much, and it's coating the food that you eat as well, it's slowing down how quickly that food enters your digestive system and enters the bloodstream. So now, instead of getting a straight shot of sugar to your system, it's slowing that down. So you get a more steady release of the sugar into your system, which keeps the insulin from spiking and staying high. And now your insulin levels are coming down. Plus the fact that we're not snacking, that's helping keep the insulin levels down. So that's the protocol I use. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything, and because I threw my medications away about a month into the system because I'm stubborn. Not telling anyone else to do that. That's what I did because I was mad. I was mad. I was like, this is not my life. This is not how I live. I do not like medications. So once I started the protocol and started feeling like, okay, my blood pressure is coming down, my energy's going up, I'm not doing this. And I threw all my medications away. I have not filled a prescription medication in 2 years. This is all I've done. And my blood pressure normally is a 112/72 every single morning. It used to be 180/150 every day on dual therapy. So even pain medications, I'm not doing those anymore. And I was on Norco, Hydro, and gabapentin for muscle relaxers so I could sleep at night because of the pain I was in. Insulin resistance causes so much to go wrong in your body. And that one protocol that's really just plant-based foods will help you. And yes, the foods are vegan, halal, and gluten-free, the system. And yeah, you can look it up in the PDR. Your doctor can prescribe it. Not all insurances cover it, but many will. So if you get the prescription from your doctor and you're doing this system instead of the metformin or alongside of it so you can come off of it, your insurance may pay for it if you get that prescription, and it's prescribable because it's in the PDR. So guys, I have another meeting that I have to prepare for, and I'm going to hop off, but I'll be back at 8:30 in the morning. Um, and we'll probably just do some, yes, exercise. So I'm glad you said that. So I I did not understand that. I was a world champion athlete until I think my last championship was 54, somewhere around there. But I was in the gym 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, depended on whether I was working on my main lifts or not, how heavy and intense that was. And even at that, on keto and all the other things, watching all my macros, I couldn't drop the weight. And my numbers weren't out of range yet, but I had all the other symptoms. So now I understand that my workouts have changed. It was really hard for me to transition because I had been trained for so long to do heavy, high, intense workouts, and I was so competitive that that's how I like to work out. Now I take long walks. Now I do qigong. Now I do shiatsu. Now I do a lot more gentle movements that are getting my body moving head to toe and allowing me to stretch and allowing my muscles to be sensitive. You guys, there are so many things that you can do that don't require heavy lifting that are going to give you back health in your body and actually challenge your body. So I invite you to go. There's tons of information on that out there. You do not have to lift like a beast to be healthy, especially, yes, for PCOS and women. Um, I found a post this morning that talked about after my last world championship, I think I won it by a half a kilo because both hips had been replaced. My one knee was needing, both knees were needing to be replaced, but the one was actually starting to crack. I still competed on it. And I was really hard on myself at first because I only won by a half a kilo, and that's not my personality. And then I finally accepted it. At the end of the post, I said I'd be back on the platform again. And I have to say that I don't know if I'll ever be back on the platform because my life is different. And I'm going to prioritize my health and healthy movement of my body over that kind of competitiveness now. I don't, wherever you're at in life, do what's right for you. But PCOS and menopause, those heavy, high intensity workouts can actually be damaging. Dr. Khalud, thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, guys, I'm going to hop off. I'll be back at 8:30 in the morning, and we'll just have more of an informal chat. I'll share with you what's going on in my life. We'll talk. I'll answer as many questions as I can, and I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you for investing in your time. See you at 8:30 in the morning. Thank you, Dr. Khalud, for being in here and being such a great support today. Really do appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.